Hello!
Hello AOS fans!
It's the agents of Norwood.
In this video we're going to tell you why you should be playing Nemesis format.
Just off the bat, I absolutely hate it when YouTubers tell me what I should be doing.
That's why I actually opened the video.
And what I immediately want to do when I hear people say that is, well, I'm not going to do that now.
Okay, we're going to tell you why you should be playing Championship format.
Oh, brilliant. I'm going to play Nemesis now. We've been playing a lot of Nemesis games recently on the channel.
Yes, almost exclusively.
Yeah, and you probably might have noticed if you've been following us at all, but if you're not and you're new to it, then this pretty much is our thing now. We're all about the Nemesis, and we want to do this video just to try and give you some of the reasons why we feel that Nemesis is the saviour of Underworlds now and why it's better than all the other options.
Yes, we have done a whole video on all the different ways to play Warhammer Underworlds, but we have definitely settled on Nemesis format as being our favourite for a number of reasons, and I don't think we're the only ones, because evidence from the wider world, rather than just in the studio here,
just what we've made up.
The increasing popularity of the Bugman's clashes up at Warhammer Underworld. If you don't know, up at Warhammer World in Nottingham, they play every month on a Thursday evening. I don't know if it's a specific Thursday, but once a month on a Thursday, they play a little mini clash, one match per round. They're getting more and more people playing, and a wider variety of warbands playing, yes. And they play. The key thing is to this: they play Nemesis format. So there are a number of factors. It's not just the fact that they're playing Nemesis format, but they play Nemesis format. And it's going from strength to strength. Yes,
Nick Bateman runs it up there. He works for GW, and he was saying that the last time they played, they had 48 different people turn up, and they had 25 different warbands playing, which I just don't think you saw back in the Championship days, because there were so many warbands. People were like, they're always going to go for the more competitive.
Yeah, everybody was playing the meta, apart from the crazy bastard playing Chosen Axes or Sparkle God.
God bless them. But there's a lot more of them now, and that's one of the great things about it. You're just seeing a lot of different warbands.
It just encourages you just to think, well, I'm not going to play what's meta. I'm going to try and play something a bit off meta. And I quite like that. It's competitive, but it's more casual. I think
it's
the Championship,
slightly more casual competitiveness.
Yeah, exactly. Championship requires more effort up front. It requires a particular mentality, I think. Which, if that's your mentality, then that's fine. But I think it requires a particularly mentality. You've got to be following the meta. You've got to know what all the cards are. You've got to be buying all the stuff.
Yeah.
And I just think Nemesis is kind of like, well, actually, I quite fancy a random Thursday evening out. I'm going to throw some cards in the box and off we go.
In the previous Bugman's Clash, they'd had a lot of people had taken the Null Spirit pack with the Tooth and Claw Rivals deck, because that was a absolutely terrifying combination. And this time round, the most recent time round, one person turned up with that combination. I think they probably hadn't been there the previous time, so they were like, I want to have a try of this. But it's just fantastic to see the variation going on in that. So that's one aspect of it, is the variation now. Yeah,
well, because I think pretty much if you pick up a Nemesis deck and pretty much any warband, as long as you pick the right one, the right matchup, you get a decent game and you both score a reasonable chunk of glory.
Yeah.
We've played Axes and Eyes recently. Neither particularly good decks, but we both managed to, or good warband, sorry, but we managed to score
double-digit glory on both.
Double-digit glory.
Yep.
I had a game where I didn't hit a single attack, I don't think, or maybe one attack with Drom across the whole 12 activations. And I still managed to put in a 9 glory, I think. I got in the end, but I still managed to score a reasonable chunk of glory.
Normally, if you're playing a game with a Khorne warband and you don't hit any of your attacks, you'll be lucky to get out of the starting block. So,
and I really like this. Each Nemesis deck so far, and I have to say, when we talk about this, I think that the ones with the plot cards, so the ones that have come out from Narwood, are kind of where it's at.
Yeah.
These statements are a little bit less true for the previous ones from Harrowdeep and
the Illusory Might, and
and the plot card gives an extra element of rules and structure around the deck, which I think really helps it. And I think where they've been really clever, and I did mention this in the live chat, is that they've added some control elements to the game. Now, people have often talked about there's been some great control players over the years, but I think control was a really hard thing for the designers to build into the game, because I think so strong was aggro and at points in the game objective play that to be control, it had to really kind of mess up the plans of those people, which kind of ended up being quite negative.
Yeah.
I mean, the classic being Turtle Cast right at the back of the board.
Yeah.
Really messed it up. And I really like the Fearsome Fortress is the most obvious one. you have to be in the centre. They don't have to be, but a lot of the objectives are in the centre of the board.
Yeah,
so you
round
need
the
to be in
middle,
the centre
yeah.
of the board. But they have quite a lot of things for pushing people away, putting people on guard, just keeping you, literally defending.
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of control element in there. When I played the Eyes or the Delvers, I didn't really try and attack you. I had to try and stay on objectives. I tried to keep you away from me as much as possible. I placed them as far away as possible.
Yeah.
And any of those control cards were really helpful, but they're not over the top.
No, none of them are ridiculous.
It's not like hundreds of push cards and distractions and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And even if your deck isn't great, it is such in Nemesis that you're generally still going to be scoring glory even when nothing's going your way. So it's just nice to have that more positive experience that you are still scoring glory. Whereas in Championship especially, if you built a deck and you either hadn't really tested it out before you took it to a proper match, it could be an absolute soul crushing experience that you just don't score anything or very, very little whilst your opponent just racks up glory.
I mean, we haven't played against particularly high caliber opposition, no offence, but
I think you're fine. We're both in the top percentile of gamers in our meta.
And obviously a good player will always tend to win out against somebody who's not actually so good at playing the game and stuff. But what I like about Nemesis is that if you build a duff Nemesis deck, or even you just take your own Rivals deck, you won't get smashed into the ground if you take a duff Championship deck.
Less likely, yeah. I mean, even in the game, I think we played right near the start where you had the Null Spirit and you had the Tooth and Claw deck, which just so happened to be the overpowered combination. I had the Sons of Elmorn with the Delvers deck, which isn't a very good combination. Even then, it wasn't a complete, absolute smashing.
No.
I think the worst sort of win-loss ratio we've seen is leading by about 10 glory. And I think that's when it was the Drom versus Wormspat game. And that was like 20 plays 10 or something. And it just all went wrong for me. So, yeah, you're always going to have a good player beating a worse player, but I feel like Nemesis it's going to be closer and it doesn't feel as bad to be on the losing end.
I think so, and some of the Championship proponents have sort of said, they don't want to play with suboptimal decks, but actually I think that brings, having now played it quite a number of times, it actually brings the game closer together with everybody playing. If you can only optimise to a certain point, it just means that there's less variance, or there's less disparity between bad and good. Yeah. So there's more middle ground, I suppose.
Yeah, and I feel like that's another benefit to Nemesis in that you only have about 64 cards at most to choose from. You're going to have to pick bad cards, but that's much less time investment up front and much less monetary investment up front because you don't have to go out and buy last year's bunch of cards. No. If you've just joined the game. It's
you don't have to wait a year before you can be competitive.
Exactly. I mean, with the Null Spirit pack and the Tooth and Claw Rivals deck, you only have to buy the starter box and you've already got a pretty nasty combination. But if not, and you want to try something else out, you can pick up almost any warband and another Rivals deck, and you can probably make something work out of that.
Yeah, and with the economic situation being what it is, nobody wants to have to buy stuff just to play their game that they don't even really want. And so I really like that they've separated the Nemesis decks, or the plot decks, from the warbands now. So some people were moaning that you were getting less for your money, but I think, well, we don't actually know this, but I'm guessing there aren't going to be the extra Rivals decks, or not Rivals decks.
The extra packs like they did back with the
Deadly Depths or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately net amount spent will be roughly the same. You're getting slightly less,
you
didn't use them. I mean, I've got a big stack of cards over there that I've chucked out. I didn't use them.
Yeah, there are so many that you used to get hundreds of cards you would barely use.
So you are paying more for less, but you're using a larger percentage of the less that you bought. So I'm not sure how it works out. So I think it's a really good move in that respect, because if you didn't like the Loon Court, you didn't buy the Loon Court, but if you like the Fortress deck, which I think is my favourite.
I think the Fortress is my favourite.
Then you can just go and buy that, and I can't remember what the retail price is, but £15 roughly.
It was about that, and about 26 quid for the warbands. Obviously, if you don't go to a secondary seller,
you can just go and play that with pretty much any deck, and it's brought back. What I really like about it is re-leveled the playing field. It's made people want to bring back old warbands, so it made me actually think, maybe I could do something with the Eyes of the Night. It made you think, maybe I could do something with the Chosen Axes.
Yeah.
And I've played Steel Hearts with them, and it just is fun.
It's just much more fun, but it's still competitive. I don't think there's any problem with it being fun and competitive at the same time. Maybe some people argue it's a little less competitive. I still don't think that it's any less competitive than Championship.
Well, you're all playing with the same
Exactly, you've got exactly the same thing. So
and ultimately, I think it makes we've talked about this before, but it makes playing on the boards more of a challenge rather than. Well, I'm going to put all these upgrades on there. I'm going to charge, and I've rolled 5 dice, and I re-roll
that one.
Yeah, I re-roll all these dice, and I've hit. I can see why it's an interesting intellectual exercise to build that kind of stuff. But actually, on the board, I'd much rather have the intellectual exercise opposite each other on the table than at home.
It also stops things like the tomes and relic issues where you could just sit at the back of the board and just abuse one particular mechanic. There isn't that option anymore in the Rivals decks. And if there is a Rivals deck out that's broken, they can much more easily stop that by just banning a particular Rivals deck.
I guess you probably get some people up in arms if that happens. But so far, it seems pretty good. Although, like I say, we haven't really looked into this Gnarl Spirit situation. But, it didn't win.
No,
it didn't win the tournament. Did it win either? Did it win? No, it did win the first one, I think, didn't it? But it hasn't won. It didn't win the last one. And
it wasn't like it dominated all of the top either, so you still have to be good with it.
Yeah, one thing I do like is I used to have real trouble. You've got 50 warbands now, whatever to pick from.
Yeah.
I used to have real trouble when we were trying to pick championship decks, of thinking, right, well, what do I want to do with X warband, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So I tended to lean towards the same ones.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you kind of know, each Nemesis deck kind of has its own archetype. So you've got Tooth and Claw, which is aggro. You've got the Fortress one, which is a bit more defensive.
Control.
And you've got some explory one. The explorer one is a little bit more objective.
Yeah. Getting into your opponent's territory.
Yeah, exactly. And so you kind of know immediately which warbands are good with that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, for example, build the Eyes on the Nine. I wanted to build Tooth and Claw because I wanted to make it Beacon Talon, which I thought was quite a nice synergy. But actually, when I looked at the cards, it was very quick to see that wasn't going to work.
They're just too fragile
and
for that.
They'd be better with something different. And again, Steel Hearts, clearly, the Fortress. I can't remember. I did play the Fortress, but I think the Fortress wasn't bad for them. Or Tooth and Claw. You kind of look at it and think, oh yeah, that would work with them.
Yeah.
And you've only got, like you said earlier, 64 cards to play with.
You can very quickly come up with a deck to try. And if it does badly, you haven't spent loads of money and hours and hours of your time to get smashed to pieces. And I guess one of the biggest things that suggests that Nemesis format is a winning format is we're seeing so many new people coming in and so many people returning to the game.
I don't know if it's a reflection on our brilliant sparkling personalities, but we have definitely seen an uplift in our people watching the game, people joining, following us and what have you.
Yep.
And I think that's because people are more interested in the game again, because it's suddenly become more accessible.
Yeah.
And the economic situation being what it is, if it wasn't accessible, people would just leave it and go, I just cannot do that. So they must be doing something right, because there's awful lot of demand for our money at the moment.
Yes.
And people are buying back into it, which I think is great, and it's really great to see people dusting off their old collections and playing again.
Yep.
And so I think Nemesis has been really good for the game. So have I convinced you, Pete? Should you be playing Nemesis?
I suppose I should in this situation. Fine.
See, sometimes YouTubers know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Not
However,
us,
don't
but
follow some of
do.
those TikTok bargain ways to save money videos, because that will probably kill you.
They're atrocious.
Don't do that.
They're atrocious.
Yeah.
So let us know in the comments below, what do you enjoy about Nemesis, or what are you not enjoying about Nemesis? Is there something that's stopping you getting back into the game that's Nemesis related? Yeah,
I mean, are you a championship diehard? Do you think we're talking poppycock? Pop it in the comments below and we'll ignore you.
Do like, subscribe, ring that bell so you see all of our content, and do let us know what you'd like to see us doing in the future. And of course, shortly into 2023, maybe we'll have a new one. It's coming soon. Yeah, you never know. Yeah. So we'll see you soon.